Welcome back, crafters, to our Cricut Beginner Series. Today we are doing your very first heat transfer vinyl project. This is a super beginner project, but I think the end result you will really love. It's super cute. I actually just gifted one of these to a friend, and it's so easy to do, but they turn out looking so cute. The design is so trendy. We are making this amazing sweatshirt with like a little collar design and a little sleeve design, and we're gonna use some fonts and an SVG from design bundles that I'll show you here in just a minute. If this is the first video you're seeing in the Cricut Beginner Series, don't forget to go subscribe to our channel and watch all the other ones that we've posted so far. Our very first video in this series kind of covers all the terminology and some basic tips you're gonna wanna know about Cricut before you dive in. It's a super useful video if you have just gotten your Cricut out of the box. The next video goes over Cricut Design Space and all the basic features and functionality. The third video is your first adhesive vinyl project, which is what we did last week. And then today we're doing your first heat transfer vinyl project. So definitely like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing, because we're gonna be doing so much more Cricut Beginner content coming up and you won't wanna miss it. If you've never seen me in your life before, my name is Laura Lambert. I am a Cricut crafter and Cricut educator. You can find me personally here on the Design Bundles page all the time, or on my own social media channels at It's Laura Lambert. So check that out also. Whew, okay, let's dive in. Let's talk about the supplies you're gonna need for today's project. So the first thing you need is some sort of sweatshirt. You could also do this on a t-shirt if you wanted. I'm using this brown one. It's just Fruit of the Loom, I think. Yes, this is just a brown Fruit of the Loom sweatshirt. There's nothing special about it. You don't have to worry about polyester count or any of those things that you do have to worry about with sublimation. Just get one that you like. And then you also need white heat transfer vinyl. I am using Caesar Easy Weed today. It's my personal favorite. There's a lot of people out there who might have a different favorite, and if so, leave it in the comments. Tell us why it's your favorite, but I just tend to gravitate towards Caesar Easy Weed. And I did learn this year that it's pronounced Caesar, not Sizer. So, sorry to Caesar. You're also gonna need, in the way of some basic tools, a weeding hook and a pair of scissors. And then you also will need a standard grip Cricut mat. That's the green one, and I'm using mine from HTV today. You can do this project on any Cricut machine. I'm doing mine on the Cricut Maker 3, but you could also do this project on a Joy Extra, a Silhouette, Cricut Explorer, Cricut Maker, Cricut Venture, Caesar Romeo, Caesar Juliet. Wow, how many machines can I name? StarCraft Solo? That's it. There's more out there, but that's all I can think of in this moment. This is the cutting mat I'll be using. So green, regular grip cutting mat. Mine is from HTV Ront. That is all of our materials. So now let's talk about our files. We are using 2 files, both from Design Bundles today. They are both included in a Plus membership. If you don't already know about a Plus membership, we have it linked in the description below. Please check it out. It's definitely worth it. I have one and I'm obsessed. The first thing we're using is this font file. It's called the Hewson script. It's so cute. We're gonna be using that for the lettering along the collar. And then this is the file that we're gonna be using for our little sleeve design, which is going to be a little book stack. So very simple. The weeding should be simple today, and everything should be very beginner friendly. So let's dive over to the computer, and I'm gonna show you how we import files into Cricut Design Space and import fonts into Cricut Design Space, which is a little bit different. I'm gonna show you both of those things, and then we're gonna get our files ready to cut. Here we are in Cricut Design Space. I just have my canvas pulled up, and if I want to upload a new file, I'm gonna hit upload, upload image, browse, and then since I just downloaded this book stack, it's like the first thing that shows up, and we want the .svg file. So we're gonna double click on that, we're gonna hit continue, we're gonna hit upload. We're not worried about doing any tweaks to this file, because that's the wonderful thing about Design Bundles files, is the designers really pay attention and they make them super clean and easy to use. So you don't even have to do anything in that section. And I'm just gonna size it down just so it's not taking up so much space. We will accurately size it here in just a second. But let's talk about fonts, because the way you put fonts into Cricut Design Space is a little weird, and I'm gonna show you how you do it for Mac. So what you're gonna do is open up your Finder, click Downloads, because that's probably where you just downloaded it. So I'm just going to double click it. It's gonna open up what's the app called Font Book. It's gonna give you a little preview. I've already imported it, so mine says replace, but yours will say like add or import. And then you just click that button and it's gonna show up in your font book. And then once you've done that, it's in your computer. So what you may have to do is close Cricut Design Space and reopen it if it doesn't show up here in a second. But what should happen is when you add text now and you go to font, you can see I have these 4 tabs up here: Cricut, System, Recent, and Bookmarked. Side caveat, if you're not using Bookmarked, definitely use it. It's awesome and a great way to kind of pare down your favorite fonts because there are oh so many. The way you add something to your favorites is just by hovering and clicking the little bookmark, and then it will show up in your Bookmarked tab. Very useful. But we're not going there today. We are going to System because that's where our fonts go that we just added. And this one is called Houston. So I'm going to type that and select Enter, and then there they are. There's my 2 fonts. I've got the Alt version and the regular version in here. So I could grab the other one if I wanted to. And I think it's just like a little bit different in terms of some of like the hanging parts of the letters. You can see like the X isn't like coming down as far. So just like a little less off the main line of your font. And we are going to change that text by double clicking it to rather be reading. It would help if I spelled reading right. I'm going to look at it in both fonts to see which one I like better. Ooh, there's only slight differences. So as you can see, the main one kind of has like, wait, is this the Alt one or the main one? That's the main one. The main one has some more like hanging bits. And the Alt one is kind of more along the midline, and I kind of prefer that one, but you pick whichever one you prefer. I'm gonna delete the other one. And technically, we're gonna cut both of these in white vinyl, but just for purposes of seeing it better, I'm gonna put everything in black. And then when I lay down my vinyl, I'm just gonna lay down white vinyl. At the end of the day, Cricut doesn't know that you're not actually putting black vinyl down on your mat. So as long as everything you want to be the same color is the same color on here, you're good to go. So I know this is going to be white, but I'm just gonna look at it in black for ease of looking. And now we need to measure some stuff. So let's move all this out of the way and let's measure. All right, so I'm just gonna take my little measuring tape here. Let's see how much room we have to work with here. So we're gonna curve this text here in a second, and I kind of want it to take up like about 6 inches in curved width there. It could go up to 7, but really 6 is ideal. So let's remember that. And then on my sleeve here, I am working with a width of about 2.5 would be like a cute size. So I'm gonna go with that, 2.5, and then between 6 and 7 on the collar, ideally closer to 6. So now that we have that, we can adjust in Cricut Design Space. So what I'm gonna do first is work on the text. I'm not really worried about what the width is right now because we're gonna curve it. And we're gonna do that by selecting curve. And we want it to curve upwards, like along with the neck. So I'm just gonna slide this to the left until it looks about right. Now when you do that, especially with a cursive font, you're gonna affect the kerning of your letters or the distance between each letter. So then we have to adjust that. So I'm going to go to letter space and just start knocking that down until my letters connect again. But we don't wanna go too far. I think about right there. And then, now that I have those 2 things set, I can adjust my width and I'm just gonna make it 6. So that is perfection. I can kind of pretend it's on a collar. Might curve it just a little bit more. And you just keep doing that until you have something you like the look of that's gonna go along that collar of your sweatshirt. If you want it to be really exact, you could measure what angle it needs to be at and then copy it, but no. Okay, then we're gonna adjust the size of our sleeve bit. So let's go do that. We said 2.5. That part's easy. So everything here is ready to go, so then we can hit make it. And I wanna let it know that I'm cutting on a mat because you would only be cutting off mat if you were using Smart Vinyl, and we are not using Smart Vinyl today. That is a Cricut brand product that allows you to cut without a Cricut mat. And then I'm also just gonna give like a little space right here because that's like kind of close. You can move things around on your mat over here. And I'm gonna select that we are mirroring because we almost always mirror with a heat transfer vinyl. There are a few exceptions, but most of the time you're gonna mirror heat transfer vinyl. And if you wanna know more about that rule, I talk about it in the previous video in this series, the adhesive vinyl video. So if you haven't watched that, go watch it. I give a really good explanation of how to know when to mirror and when not to mirror. But we've done that, so then we're gonna hit continue. Now is the time when it's gonna connect to your Cricut machine. So if you connect via a cable, go ahead and plug that in. If yours connects via Bluetooth, you're gonna give it just a second to connect. If you've never connected your machine to Bluetooth, you'll go to the Cricut website and go to their help menu, and there will be a detailed step-by-step on how to do that if you've never done it before. So now we're gonna set the base material and we're gonna do everyday iron-on. If yours is not in the same place as mine, I have some bookmarked materials that I use all the time, but if you go to popular, it's also just right there. And we're gonna use default pressure. So that is it with the computer side of this. So we're gonna hop off the computer, we're gonna get everything set on our mat, and then we are ready to start cutting. I think this is puff vinyl. This is the wrong thing. This is the right vinyl. I really need to start labeling these. I'm gonna cause a problem in the future. Okay, so we need about, I think it went to 8 inches. I may have to double check that. Usually I just eyeball how much I need. Now, has that gotten me in trouble before? Yes. It has. So if you're not confident in your eyeballing skills, maybe measure. But once you've cut it, you're gonna lay your vinyl. There's a shiny side. Hold on, let me show you. There's a shiny side and a very matte side. You wanna do it shiny side down. So we're gonna lay it shiny side down on our mat and just press it down with our hands. This is where, like, if you have a squeegee or a brayer or something like that and you wanna really get it good and flat, you can knock yourself out during this step, get it really flat. But as long as your bubbles are like kind of tiny, like mine are, and that's usually, for me, it's because there's debris under the mat. It's not because there's actual bubbles in the material. I'm not worried about it. It's minor, it's not gonna make a difference in your cut. I'm just double checking that I have enough width right now. It needs to go about to 9, and we go a little past 9. So we're good. And then once you have it, make sure it's pressed down firmly. We're gonna take it over to the Cricut and let it cut. Now that we're over at the Cricut, we're gonna slide it under the plastic guide marks and press the flashing load unload button. We're gonna let the Cricut measure it to make sure that everything is straight and aligned. And then once it's done aligning everything, the go button is gonna be flashing and you can press it. And it's off to the races. I'm using the StarCraft 8-in-1 swing away today, but you can use any kind of heat press you want, including an easy press. Turn yours on however you turn it on, and you want it set to 315 degrees for 15 seconds. And we're gonna let it start preheating while we finish our cut. Alas, it's finished. Okay, when it's done cutting, your load unload button is gonna flash again. Press it and just pull it out. So she's done cutting. So now you could do one of two things. You can trim it down if you got too much vinyl. Like I have quite a bit of excess right here that I could trim off. And I'm probably gonna do that. But if you have just the right size, I might recommend you weed your design right here on the mat. So I'm gonna actually try to trim mine without taking it completely off so that I can show you. Cutting on or weeding on the mat is actually one of my favorite beginner tips. Not only does it make it easier to see your cuts, but also it just keeps everything nice and flat, which makes it easier to weed. So it's great for beginners to do it that way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna weed this all as one piece and then we're gonna trim it up at the end. I'm gonna find a corner of my design. In this case, it's like this little sparkle above my book. It's gonna be hard for you to see on camera, but it'll be easier for you to see in real life. And I'm just gonna take my hook right under that seam And I'm just gonna guide my hook to the corner of the piece of vinyl that I'm using. So I'm just gonna guide my hook all the way to the corner and then lift up until I can get my finger underneath. So then when my finger is underneath it, I can start to pull away. Heat transfer vinyl, it'll rip away from your design, and that's really not something to worry about. One thing I actually love about heat transfer vinyl is it is so beginner friendly. Like, it's way easier to weed. It's way easier to work with. It's really hard to mess it up, honestly. So what I'm doing now that I've got that initial piece lifted is I'm just peeling it like a sunburn. You're gonna take your outside pieces and you're just gonna start peeling. You're gonna feel like you're pulling pretty hard. That's fine. You're not gonna mess it up. I'd be shocked. If one of you messes it up from doing this, please leave it in the comments, because that deserves like a badge of honor. And I kind of try to pull like along with the orientation of my design, just because it feels a little easier somehow. Some people like to use their weeding hook for the whole part, and some people like to use their hands a little bit more. You'll probably look up a weeding tutorial and find out that like I'm doing this horribly wrong or something. I just do what works for me. Sometimes with white vinyl especially, you may have to get really close up on it to see where like the little seams are, because it can be a little harder to see. Patience is the name of the game here. This might be your very first heat transfer vinyl project, and that's great. Just go slow. There's no rule that says you have to do this all in one sitting. And if it's getting frustrating or it feels like it's too hard, take a break. All right, let's see if that's everything. Kind of tilting it at an angle just to make sure I didn't miss any lines. And we're good. So once you've done that, you can flip it over and peel it away from your mat. You wanna make sure the sticky side stays up so you don't accidentally stick it to your table. And then just cut the designs apart from each other, because we want to be able to place these separately. And then if your heat press is preheated like mine is, we're ready to move over to the heat press and attach it to our shirt. I'm going to go ahead and grab my heat mat that goes with my heat press. And I am just going to we're going to do the collar first. So I'm going to lay the collar and I'm going to press it in my heat press. It makes a huge difference. It gets all the moisture out of your product and it keeps everything nice and flat, and it really primes the surface for pressing. So always pre-press before we lay down. Once the pre-press is done, you can pull it off. And then we're just going to lay our design right along the collar there. So then once you have laid it all out, slide it onto your heat press or lay it under your heat press if you're using an easy press today. You could totally do this with an easy press, just lay it down. I'm gonna make sure everything's nice and flat under there by just peeking at it. So we're just gonna go ahead and pull it down, press for the full 15 seconds, and then we're gonna remove it from the heat. Now we're gonna pull that off the heat over here, and it needs to cool off before we peel it because this is a cool peel. So I'm just gonna slip my mat out from underneath, and we're actually going to go ahead and press our sleeve while our collar cools. So I'm gonna grab my sleeve here. Ooh, do I want it on the top or the bottom of the sleeve? I think I want it on the top of the sleeve. So I'm just gonna slide my sleeve and pre-press the sleeve. And then we are actually going to, and we're gonna lay our next part of our design right there on our sleeve. Make sure I'm not coming over any of these creases right here from the wrist line. I'm gonna put it back on my heat press and press for the full 15 seconds. Ooh, that was aggressive. And now I'm gonna slide it off the heat press and lay it right here to cool. I'm not turning off my heat press just yet because there's a possibility that we may have to do a repress if something didn't get stuck on there well enough. This is ready to peel though, so I'm just going to slowly start peeling away. I like to keep as flat of an angle as possible while I'm peeling away because that just helps prevent pulling. And then I also kind of use my hands to hold the sweatshirt down flat while I'm pulling away my carrier sheet. I don't think there's gonna be a need to repress anything. Love. Let's go ahead and test our sleeve and see if it's ready to be peeled. You're gonna think it's not gonna come because it will lift a little bit when you're starting to pull it. That's normal. It's not gonna be like, it's gonna pull just a little bit, but it should stay down for you. And there we go. All done. You could do one more little press if you wanted to, just to make sure it was all on there really well. But if you do that, I wouldn't do it for more than 5 seconds or so because you can start to wrinkle the vinyl and burn it. We have done it. You have completed your very first heat transfer vinyl project, and it is oh so cute. So today we talked about doing heat transfer vinyl. We talked about the tips and tricks for doing heat transfer vinyl, and we did our very first project. Once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell because we are doing so many more Cricut beginner projects. I hope you loved this one. Please leave comments below letting us know how you did on the project, what questions you have, and what you want to see us do next, because we definitely read them and take them into account as we move forward in this series. Ultimately, we want to be your companion as you go on your Cricut crafting journey, so we want to hear from you as to what you like, what you want more of, and what you still have questions about. My name is Laura, and this is the Design Bundles YouTube channel, and we will see you back here next time, but until then, happy crafting.